Is there any pain quieter than a child reaching out a hand, only to find no one there? This is the beginning of the psychology of the ignored child. A child raised in the absence. A child whose hunger for attention meets only silence. Jung once warned us, a child needs to be seen and recognized. No one can become themselves while living unseen. When the parent's eyes are absent, the child learns a lesson etched in silence. My existence does not matter. Picture this. A child runs forward, holding up a drawing. The parent never looks up from the phone. A greeting left unanswered. A question met with silence. A birthday passing without notice. To the adult, these are small things. To the child, they are proof. Proof that joy is not enough to make someone stop. Proof that its voice carries no weight. Slowly, the child stops asking, stops showing, stops believing it deserves to be heard. Unlike punishment, the ignored child carries no visible bruise. Its wound is an absence. An emptiness repeated so often, it hardens into a core memory. Jung called it an invisible shadow, not sharp enough to break you in the moment, but heavy enough to follow you into every bond you will ever form. The adult who was once ignored learns to hide well, to please well, to appear fine. Yet inside remains a hollow space, like a mirror fogged so thick it cannot reflect a full image. This is not only a childhood story. It explains the loneliness you may still feel today. To understand it, you must return. You must face the ignored child within, the one still waiting to be named, even after years of silence. When a child is ignored, it not only loses attention in the moment, it loses the sense of having a place in the world. Jung once said, "A child needs an eye to know it exists." Without that gaze, the child grows up believing its presence is not important. And once that belief takes root, it follows into adulthood. Picture this. A boy hands his father a drawing, but the father only frowns at the unfinished work. A girl calls her mother from across the room, but the mother only nods without truly hearing. No one shouts, no one strikes. Yet the absence itself leaves a hidden crack. Slowly, these children learn not to speak. They learn not to ask. They learn to believe their joy and sorrow are not worth anyone's attention. As an adult, the ignored child still lives inside you. You might stand at a party, smiling, talking, yet deep inside you feel invisible. You might succeed at work, receive praise, yet never believe it is truly meant for you. You might even be loved, but within there is always a whisper. One day, they will leave too. Many grow into perfect pleasers, always yielding, always listening, yet exhausted because nothing ever comes back. Some become high achievers, chasing accomplishment after accomplishment, but every victory feels hollow because the fogged mirror inside never shows them clearly. And some, after waiting too long, freeze their feelings altogether. They stop expecting anyone to stay. The wound of the ignored child is not a lack of love. It is a lack of response, a missing embrace, a glance that never landed, a question left unanswered. Together, they form one silent message. I am not worth someone's pause, and if left unrecognized, that message seeps into every bond, making you doubt even the love you receive. Jung called this the unconscious inheritance. It is not chosen, yet carried. Only when you see that the ignored child is still within you can you face the truth. The pain never disappeared. It has only been waiting to be seen. Jung once said, "A child who is not seen will grow up carrying the shadow of invisibility." It may sound abstract, but if you look into life, you will see it everywhere. A child needs a gaze in return for the way it needs air to breathe. Every time it is heard and acknowledged, it learns to believe in its own worth. But every time it is ignored, the mind writes down a message. I don't matter. When that message repeats enough times, it hardens into an unconscious map, a schema that quietly directs how you live, even when you don't realize it. Picture this. A boy brings home good grades, holding out his paper with pride. His father only nods absent-mindedly, eyes still on unfinished work. The boy learns that his achievements mean nothing. Years later, as a man, he throws himself into career goals, reaching one milestone after another. But inside, each victory feels hollow. The same silent sentence echoes. No one really cares. Or a little girl calls her mother again and again to show a new doll. Her mother, weighed down with worries, doesn't answer. The girl learns her joy is not of interest to anyone. As a grown woman, she becomes the perfect listener, always putting others first, never daring to share her own joy or sorrow. Because deep down, she still believes that if she speaks, no one will stop to listen. The ignored child is the root of that gnawing sense of unworthiness many adults carry. You may have friends, love, even success, but there is still a hidden whisper. Soon, they will leave too. That whisper makes you shrink back, or else work twice as hard to hold attention, only to end up exhausted. Jung explained it this way: human beings are not only fed by food, but also by reflection. A child sees itself in the gaze of another, and through that gaze forms a self. When that reflection is absent, the self grows blurred, like a mirror that never shows a clear face. This is the psychology of the ignored child, a psyche not built on what is present, but on what is missing. And here is the danger. As an adult, you continue to repeat the pattern without knowing. You choose friends who do not hear you. You stay in relationships where you must constantly prove your worth, because your unconscious has been trained in the language of neglect. Like a compass needle pulled off center, your mind points toward situations that replay the old feeling. And the loop continues until the day you turn and see the ignored child still sitting in the corner of your soul, waiting to be looked at once. The ignored child does not disappear when you grow up. It hides in the unconscious and resurfaces through every relationship you enter. Jung warned that what is unseen in childhood will return in adulthood in the form of fate. The silence you once endured becomes a cycle you unconsciously repeat, whether you are aware of it or not. The unconscious mechanism works like this. As a child, you needed a gaze and a response to believe you existed. When they were absent, your mind was forced to create a survival program. Don't expect attention, and you won't be disappointed. At first, this was protection, but over time, that program became a shadow. You grew so used to being unseen that, as an adult, you unconsciously seek out the very people and situations that will ignore you again. Look closely, and you'll find the loop in your life. You work hard, yet often choose environments where your efforts are never acknowledged. You love deeply, but are drawn to partners who never truly hear you. You form friendships, but always play the perfect listener, rarely daring to share your own story. None of this is random. It is the ignored child at the wheel, steering you back into the familiar feeling of being overlooked. Jung called this the compulsion to repeat, the unconscious drive to return to old wounds, hoping this time it will be different, hoping someone will finally see you. But here is the paradox. The more you chase recognition, the more you recreate the wound, and each time the loop tightens, you believe even more deeply that you are not worthy of being seen. And here comes the chilling truth. If you don't stop, the ignored child will keep writing the script of your life. You will find yourself in relationships where you are always backstage, at jobs where you are never enough, and you will grow old with the hollow sense that your presence is only an echo in an empty room. The unconscious mechanism of the ignored child does more than cause pain. It erodes your capacity for intimacy. A person who was never truly seen as a child struggles to believe that anyone wants to see them now. And because they do not believe, they either build walls too high or cling too tightly, both of which eventually fracture even good relationships. Jung once said, "What you deny in the dark becomes the fate that rules your light." The ignored child is that darkness. If you don't turn back to face it, the loop will continue, silent, patient, inevitable. Imagine an old mirror covered in dust standing before you. Each time you look into it, the reflection is blurred, distorted, and never complete. You place your hand on the glass, but all you feel is the cold haze separating you from yourself. This is the central metaphor of the ignored child, the fogged mirror that never reflects your full being. As a child, the mirror appeared every time you sought recognition, but met only silence. You needed a smile, a nod, a listening ear to feel that you existed. But when no response came, the reflection grew dimmer. You began to wonder, am I truly worth being seen? Over the years, that mirror became part of your unconscious, following you into every corner of life. In friendship, the fogged mirror makes you a listener, but rarely a sharer. You fear that if you reveal yourself, others will not care, just as no one cared when you were young. In love, the mirror keeps you caught between longing and anxiety. You want to be seen fully, yet tremble at the thought of being forgotten. In work, the mirror blurs your achievements. No matter how much you accomplish, you cannot feel complete, because the reflection inside remains faint and unclear. The mirror also creates a cruel paradox. The harder you try to prove your worth, the more you look into it, and the more distorted the image becomes. Compliments from others shine like light onto the dusty glass, but instead of clarity, they reveal every smudge and blemish. Nothing feels enough, because at the root lies this truth: you never felt truly mirrored. Jung once said, "We become human when we are reflected in the eyes of another." The ignored child is the one who grew up without that mirror. As an adult, you still carry it in your hands, a silent relic of a childhood unseen. It is not just an image, it is a felt reality, the vague, persistent sense that you are undefined, unfinished, unrecognized. Yet the fogged mirror is not the end of the story. It can be cleared gently, little by little. Each time you validate your own feelings, each time you pause to hear the quiet voice within, you wipe away a layer of dust, and eventually the reflection sharpens. One day you realize the truth. You were never without value. You were only hidden beneath silence. When you grow up, the ignored child does not disappear. It mirrors itself in small, almost invisible moments of your daily life. You can be at a party, surrounded by laughter, yet inside feel like you don't belong, as if everyone is talking to each other and you're only standing on the sidelines. You can work hard, receive praise, yet the first thought that echoes inside your head is, "They're just being polite." No one really means it. And in love, even when someone holds you close, deep in your chest a whisper remains. One day, they will leave too. This is how the ignored child casts its shadow, not through storms that break you, but through a quiet absence that seeps into every moment. You smile, but the joy fades too quickly. You speak, but your own words return to you as hollow echoes. You succeed, but only minutes later, emptiness replaces the victory. This silent gap makes you doubt everything: other people, love, even yourself. The greatest wound of the ignored child is the split within. One part of you knows you are doing well, knows you are loved, yet another part refuses to believe. It is as if you live in two parallel worlds: the surface world that looks full, and the inner world that feels vacant. The contradiction drains you because you are constantly forced to maintain the mask of "I'm fine," while inside, the ignored child repeats its message: you have never been enough. If it is not recognized, you will carry this child for life. You will enter relationships where you give more than you receive, always hoping to finally be seen. You will work endlessly, but every achievement will fade too soon. You will search for love, only to repeat the old cycle of being overlooked. Jung warned, "What is not brought into consciousness returns as fate." The ignored child is precisely that fate: silent, patient, but unrelenting. The step toward change begins with the mirror. Not to blame your parents or curse the past, but to admit the ignored child still lives within you. Only by seeing it clearly can you begin to break the cycle. And the truth is, this child does not demand anything grand. It only longs for one thing: the gaze it never received. A simple act of acknowledgement. And it can begin quietly with you. From childhood to adulthood, you have spoken a silent language. Don't ask, don't disturb, don't let anyone see what you need. That language was once the ignored child's way of survival. But as you grew, it turned into chains. You spoke less, you hid emotions. You did everything yourself just to avoid being overlooked again. Yet this very silence repeats the old cycle. Others continue not to see you, not to hear you, and once more you confirm the secret fear that you were never worth stopping for. Jung once said, "The child within you does not disappear, it waits to be named." And that is the first step of reframing, changing how you name your experience. Instead of saying, "I am invisible," try saying, "I was once overlooked, but now I am learning to see myself." This shift in language is not just words. It is the key that unlocks another reality. When you change the way you name it, you change the way you see it. Imagine the ignored child inside you sitting in a dim corner, waiting for an eye to meet theirs. Each time you write down your feelings, each time you acknowledge a small achievement, each time you dare to say, "I need," in front of another, you are shining light into that corner. You are no longer waiting for someone else to do it. You become the first mirror that reflects your own image. And as this light grows, the dusty mirror inside begins to clear. This is also when you must practice a new language in your relationships. Instead of silently enduring, try saying, "I feel forgotten when." Instead of pretending to be fine, try sharing, "I need acknowledgement here." This may make you tremble, because the ignored child inside fears that speaking up will only lead to the same void. But the paradox is this: only when you speak do you break the cycle. Mid-whisper, if you continue to stay silent, you will live your whole life in the language of the ignored child, a language without words that quietly corrodes every connection. But if you dare to change the language, you give yourself the right to exist. Reframing does not mean denying the past. You don't have to pretend the ignored child never existed. On the contrary, you must say, "I was overlooked, and it left a real mark. But I am no longer a child without choice. Now I can choose to see myself." This is the most powerful inner declaration you can make, and it is the first step to turning silence into strength. Jung called this the path of individuation, becoming whole. And to walk this path, you do not need to wait for anyone to rescue you. You only need to learn how to become the clear mirror that the ignored child inside you has been missing for so long. If the ignored child inside you has never been reflected, the first step is to learn how to become the mirror for yourself. This is not abstract. It begins with small actions you can try today. Step 1. Write down your feelings. Each time you feel hollow or left out, don't stay silent. Open a notebook and record exactly what you are feeling. Writing gives the ignored child a voice, instead of letting it be buried in silence. Step 2. Acknowledge small successes. Instead of brushing past them, pause and say, "I did this." It could be finishing a task, exercising, or daring to speak your mind. Each recognition is like wiping away one layer of dust on the fogged mirror. Step 3. Practice asking for attention. The next time you want to share something, say clearly, "I want you to hear this." At first you may tremble, but each attempt teaches you that your needs deserve a response. Step 4. Create spaces of reflection. Choose someone you trust and share something you would normally hide. Even a small story is enough. When you feel listened to, the ignored child within begins to believe that not every voice disappears into emptiness. These small acts won't erase the wound overnight, but they begin to rebuild the forgotten belief that you are worthy of being seen. And that belief is the real foundation of healing. If the ignored child within you remains silent, the price you pay is not just forgotten childhood memories. It is the persistent emptiness that seeps into every corner of adult life. You may have a stable career, a loving relationship, even a family of your own. Yet deep inside, a question keeps echoing. Am I truly important? That question is like a shadow that dulls every joy, leaving you doubtful, guarded, always fearing the moment you will once again be overlooked. An ignored child, left unhealed, will reappear in your relationships. You may become someone who constantly pleases others just to hold their attention, or you may withdraw too early to avoid disappointment. You may work tirelessly, chasing recognition, but when praise finally comes, you cannot believe it is real. You may love deeply, but your love is tinted with anxiety. Soon they will turn away. This is the cycle of the ignored child, the cycle Jung described as the shadow unacknowledged. But when you dare to admit that the ignored child still lives within you, a different path opens: reconciliation. Healing does not come from denying the past. It comes from accepting that you were once overlooked and that it left a real mark. Only when you face this truth do you gain the chance to rewrite the story. The quality you gain by doing so is wholeness. You no longer live divided, one part performing stability, the other part hollow. Instead, you begin to live as one seamless self, allowing yourself to enjoy when you are happy, to express when you are sad, and to speak when you need. This is the first step in what Jung called individuation, the journey of becoming your true self. The final philosophy here is clear. The ignored child is not the end. It is the beginning. Every time you listen to yourself, every time you affirm your own worth, you are giving back to that child what it has waited for all along. And in that moment, the shadow no longer rules you as fate. It becomes the very ground upon which you build a whole and authentic life. Imagine there is an old journal hidden inside your mind. Its pages have yellowed with time, filled with the shaky handwriting of a child who once kept asking, "Who will see me? Who will listen?" That journal was never opened, never read, so it remains there, growing heavier with each passing year. Every page holds a memory overlooked, a feeling never acknowledged. And you, even as an adult, still carry it with you. When you dare to sit down and turn its pages, you are not just revisiting childhood. You are giving the ignored child within you the chance to be heard, to be acknowledged, to exist. You don't need anyone else to continue the story for you. The moment you take the pen into your own hands, the journal begins to change. The new pages can hold courage, reflection, and a voice that has been silent for far too long. This video is only a reminder. The ignored child never disappears. It is simply waiting for you to reopen that forgotten journal. And when you begin to write, you will see that healing is not about finding someone else to recognize you. It is about learning how to see yourself clearly. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing to the channel to continue this journey with us, because perhaps in the next video, another chapter of that journal will be waiting for you to open.